Good morning, students. Today we are going to revise the portrait of a lady. Now, Portrait of a Lady was written by Khushwant Singh. He was an Indian novelist. He was also a lawyer. He was a journalist and also a politician. He was born and raised in Hadeli, Punjab. Now it is in Pakistan. He studied law at the St. Stephen's College, Delhi, and King's College, London. After working as a lawyer in Lahore Court for 8 years, he joined the Indian Foreign Services upon the independence of India from British Empire in 1947. He was also appointed as a journalist in the All India Radio in 1951. He was appointed journalist and then he moved to the Department of Mass Communication of UNESCO at Paris in 1956. Khushwant Singh has written many stories, and from his collection of stories, this Portrait of Lady is one of them. He is also decorated with the Padma Bhushan in 1974, but he returned the award in 1984 in protest against the Operation Blue Star, in which the Indian Army raised Amritsar, raided Amritsar. In 2007, he was awarded the Padma Vibhushan, the second highest civilian award in India. Now let's go to the story. This story, The Portrait of the Lady, shows the three phases of life. Now, the grandmother is old, she is crooked, she has a wrinkled face, but yet she is beautiful. Now, the three phases of life. The first phase of the life is of the author and the grandmother in the village, where she looks after the grandson, she takes him to the temple to study, then they she takes him to school, she gets him ready for school, she makes chapatis for him, feeds him, and she used to chant prayers. So that was the first phase, that is in the village life. The second phase was when they reached the city. In this, now they shared the same room, but she could not teach the grandson because grandson was going to a city school where they taught English, where they taught Western music, and that is what the grandmother did not like. And slowly by slowly, the relationship between them started going far. Then the third phase comes when the author goes to the university. It was at that time that he had a separate room. The grandmother also stays lonely, doesn't talk to anyone. Her only thing was that she would keep on chanting her prayers and spin on the wheel, or she used to feed the sparrows. After that, they became more far when he went away abroad. When he returned from abroad, that was another phase that came, change came. She did not chant the prayers that day. She only played the drum. She collected all the women of the society and she sang songs and all. And after that, she died. So, this is the story in the Portrait of a Lady. Now, let us do phase wise. In this story, the author draws a pale portrait of his grandmother. He beautifully shows the relationship of her with him. and describes her appearance and her daily activities. First of all, we start with the appearance of the grandmother. The author recalls that his grandmother as a very old lady with wrinkled face. He says that when I have seen, I've always said that my grandmother was very old, she had wrinkled face, and he said that it was very hard for me to believe that once when my grandmother was young, she was very pretty. Because I've always seen her as a short, as a fat, a little stooped in appearance lady. The author remembers her moving about in the house in spotless white. Means he has always seen his grandmother, as a widow, counting the beads of her rosary and constantly doing silent prayers. She was not pretty in the traditional sense, yet he said that her serenity, purity, that was very beautiful. Now, after that, that was the first phase, that is the togetherness of the author and the grandmother in the village. The author, first in the initial years, stayed with his grandmother in the village, and they had a very good friendship. The grandmother used to wake him up, get him ready for school. She would hand over to him the slate and the things that he needed in the school. After having thick stale chapatis with milk for his breakfast, they would leave for school. The author's grandmother always accompanied him to the school because it was attached to the temple. While he was in school, she would chant prayers, shloks, sitting in the temple. And when she accompanied him to school, she would take several stale chapatis which they would feed the village dogs while returning back from school. The grandmother sat inside the temple, as I told you, read holy books, and the narrator learned alphabets and prayers in the school. The turning point of friendship came in the grandmother and the grandson when they had gone to the city, when they moved to the city and started staying with the author's parents. They shared the same room, but now the grandmother did not accompany him to school. The grandmother, now what happened, would stay at home and the author would go to the school by bus. As years kept on going, they started seeing each other very less. Now, because there were no dogs in the streets and in the city, so she started feeding the sparrows there. Now, if you go to see, in the village school, they were taught scriptures, they were taught prayers, but in the city, they were not taught anything about God. And this troubled the grandmother the most. She did not believe in what was taught in the school. She said no, she was very unhappy. She said it disturbed her. And when she came to know that they learnt music and all, that disturbed her more. Because she said that music is not suitable for people like us, for the gentle folk. These she disapproved it, and she became silent about it. She did not even like the teaching of sciences and all in their school. Though they shared the same room, now as the author kept on growing, the common link of friendship got snapped. That was when they entered into the third phase. The friendship became over because the author went away to the university and then he was given a room of his own. The grandmother also accepted her loneliness in silence, and she did not speak much to anyone. She spoke very less. All day long she kept on just spinning on the wheel and reciting her prayers. Only in the afternoon she used to relax for a while to feed the sparrows. Now, when the author went away to the university, I told you there came a gap between their friendship. And when this gap came, she accepted her loneliness and then stopped talking to anyone. She started relaxing for a short time, and at that time, she would feed the sparrows in the afternoon. And many sparrows came in large number, and then her relationship and her bond started with the sparrows. The sparrows also felt very comfortable. Even she felt very happy when she was feeding the sparrows. And they used to come and with comfortably sit on her legs, on her head. And that is how she started spending her time. After that, the author decided that he has to go abroad for his further studies. And he was sure that this would upset even his grandmother more and his departure. But then she did not say anything. Yes, she went to see him off on the railway station, but did not show any emotions, no sadness, nothing. She was just absorbed in her own prayers. She kept on telling the beads of her rosary. She silently kissed the author's forehead, and after that, that was the last physical sign of the physical contact. After that, the author went away and he returned back after 5 years. But he saw that there was no change in his grandmother. She was silent, just observed in her prayers, and even that day, she kept on feeding the sparrows. But in the evening, it was the first time that she did not pray. She changed her routine. She collected all the ladies of her neighborhood and she started singing songs related to the homecoming of the warriors. She had to be persuaded. Everyone told her that you are going to become ill by the overstraining and all. But she did not stop singing. She kept on playing the drum and she kept on singing. And it was because of this overstraining that she became ill the next day. When the doctor came and diagnosed the grandmother, they came to know that she was sick. She had a little mild fever. But grandmother said that she knew that her end was near. She said that let me spend my few hours just reciting prayers and telling my beads, and she kept on, her lips kept on moving, and then she died. The family started making arrangements for grandmother's funeral. The stretcher was brought, and at that time thousands of sparrows came scattered and sat down in the veranda around her dead body. The sparrows also mourned the death of the grandmother. They did not chirp, and in utter silence, they were really very silent. They even ignored the breadcrumbs which the mother had thrown to them. And when the body was carried away for the cremation, the sparrows also flew away silently and went away. The breadcrumbs were swept away by the sweeper the next morning. So, I hope all of you have understood the story and you can see the relationship between the author and his grandmother, the difference between a village school and a city school, and the three phases of the friendship of the grandmother and the grandson.